Okay, everybody, I'm making this video to tell a joke on behalf of Team E, Cesar Salad Tossers. And since this contest that Dustin Abraham is hosting is a bit of a tribute to Russo and his legacy, I'm going to tell a joke in the same manner that Ricky told the joke, which is in the form of narrative storytelling. And the story I'm going to tell goes back to my younger days in my early 20s. Just got married and trying to work and hustle, make ends meet. Didn't have, a family at that point, but there's always more bills to be paid than you got paycheck for. And I took a job that many people who are young guys find appealing, and that was working as a bartender. As a second job. And when you work as a bartender, you meet a lot of strange and interesting people. And the strangest and most interesting person is the story I'm going to be telling you about. I saw this person, walk into my bar just one quiet evening, and he stuck out because he was carrying what appeared to be kind of like a live animal crate or a pet kennel for a small dog, maybe a cat. And you notice a very old and threadbare pair of work dungarees. And he came up near the bar, sat down in his crate, and sat up to the stool and asked me for the most expensive scotch that we carried, and we had a high end scotch that didn't ever get used, but I poured him out a drink, and I told him it would be $150 for this one drink. And he reached into his pocket and pulled out $100 bill and handed it to me. And, and then he reached into his pocket again and pulled out a second $100 bill and gave it to me and said, "There you go, keep the change." It's like, hey, this guy's my new best friend. I got a $20 or, a $50 tip right off the start. So he's having his drink, and a little bit later, there's a very attractive woman down at the other end of the bar. He tells me, "Hey, would you send this woman a glass of champagne?" And he reaches into his pocket. He pulls out another $100 bill and says, send her, the nicest glass of champagne that you can, and, keep the change. And so I sent the down there, poured the glass of champagne, went to one and said, "Hey, gentleman at the end of the bar would like you to have this." And there's an etiquette in the bar, when a man buys a woman a drink, if she turns down the drink, she's basically saying, not interested, keep your distance. But if she accepts the drink, she's at least saying, hey, she's willing for that guy to come down and spend a few minutes to talk and maybe get to know each other a little bit and, feel each other out forever how long it takes her to finish that drink. So when she accepts the drink, he slides on down to her end to chat her up a little bit. And as a bartender, you try to keep a respectful distance, but, you still, you pay attention, because you want to be there to provide service. And you're watching what happens a little bit to some degree, no matter what, just because, hey, interesting story. And as I see it, after a minute or two, I see her start to write on a cocktail napkin, and it certainly looks like she's writing down her phone number. And she slides it over to him, and he picks it up and says, "Oh, thanks. I think I'll call you sometime." And then the strangest thing happened. She goes, no, don't do that. And then promptly takes the last swig of her champagne, gets up, and walks right out the bar. And at this point, it's like, you don't want to be, prying, but I'm too interested not to. And I have to go up to that person. I'm like, what did I just see there? Because I thought she gave you your number and then immediately said you shouldn't call her. And he says, yeah, well, it's a long, complicated story, but this happens to me a lot. I'm like, happens to you a lot? That doesn't happen to anybody. How does this happen to you specifically a lot? It's a complicated. It's like, I got lots of time. We're alone here in the bar. Tell me the story here. He's like, well, you're not going to believe this story, but here it goes. I work as an archaeologist. I've been all over the world studying ancient civilizations. I've been Egypt, Mesopotamia, Persia, all across, the ancient world. And years ago, I was excavating a site of an ancient Persian ruler. And in that excavation, I found, what looked like kind of a unique lamp from his palace. And as we were, attempting to remove it and clean that item, the next thing I know, I have a genie standing before me. I know it sounds crazy, but there he was. It was a genie. And this genie says, I have 3 wishes. And being somebody that's familiar with the time, I understood that this genie would try to manipulate my wishes. Even though he's giving me these 3 wishes, he's going to try to manipulate them so that I end up regretting them as much as possible. And as a genie, he can't kill anybody, and they don't have the power to make somebody fall in love with you. So those are some limitations. And so I knew all of these things, but as I was trying to see, hey, is there a way that I can still, get these magical wishes to come true? And so I tried. And my first wish was that I was going to have unlimited money. And what I wished for was that every time I reached into my pants pocket, I would be able to pull out $100 bill. And the genie granted my wish. But what I didn't realize when I made the wish, that he granted the wish specifically to the pair of pants that I was wearing. So it only works when I'm wearing these pants. And so I have to wear these pants every day. And they're starting to get old and worn. And if these pants ever get to the point where I can't wear them anymore, I'll lose this wish. And it only works, when I pull out the money and I give it to somebody. And so if I spend that money, I have to spend the money first. I can't just keep pulling out 100s. If I don't spend it, it disappears. So that's why, if I'm buying anything that's more than $100, I have to pull it out and spend it one at a time in order to keep any of that money. And then, so that wish just didn't work the way I planned. And then I thought, I want to be able to find, love with amazing women. And I knew I couldn't get them to fall in love with me, but I thought maybe, possibly, if I could wish for I would always be able to get, if I asked for their phone number, they would always be willing to give it to me. And so now it doesn't matter who the woman is, how beautiful, famous, whatever. I can ask for her phone number and I can get her phone number, but I can't make her take my calls. And so, it's so frustrating that way. But the worst thing that happened was with my third wish. And I'm like, well, okay, you built this up a lot. Just what are we talking about with this third wish? He says, well, you're going to have to see this. And he reaches down and he picks up that crate that he carried in. He sets it up there on the bar and he opens it up. And before my eyes, I am seeing a 1 foot tall little Elton John on a piano. And he's going into a rendition of course, Tiny Dancer, followed by Piano Man. And I'm looking and I'm just like, how does any wish end up with this? And the man looks at me and says, well, this is the most contentious part, because I absolutely did not, under any circumstances, wish for a 12-inch pianist.